Alright everyone, if there's one video in this series you should absolutely pay attention to and watch, it is this one. We're going to go over all of the rules and guidelines that you need to know to keep yourself out of trouble with FBA. The absolute best part about FBA is when it comes to issues or trouble, there's really only two things that can cause you to get in trouble. One is your shipments in, and two is the merchandise. So really besides that, there's not many mistakes you can make to get in trouble because you send your stuff to them and they take care of the rest. So I'm going to go over some of the shipping guidelines you need to know and some of the important stuff that you need to know to make sure you have absolutely no trouble, you don't get in trouble with Amazon, and you can continue on your journey. Alright, the absolute most important rule and the first thing you need to know is they have a zero tolerance policy for counterfeit goods. They don't care about your story about how they got sent there. They don't care that you found them at the thrift store. If you send something in counterfeit, you're going to get in a lot of trouble and potentially banned off the site. Mostly because you're ruining their brand reputation by having them accidentally sell counterfeit goods. And usually you get reported for this by sending it in and then it sells, and then the buyer reports that the item was counterfeit. So you really need to make sure that absolutely everything you send in is not counterfeit. If you have any suspicion whatsoever you have a counterfeit item from the thrift store or garage sales or whatever, do not send it in until you know for a fact it is authentic. The second most important thing is when you ship in boxes to FBA, they do not allow you to pack the boxes full of packing peanuts, shredded paper, or stretched plastic like plastic wrap. Do not send those in. You'll get charged extra fees for handling. They do not accept those. I know it's something you wouldn't think of because usually packing peanuts are fine. I imagine they don't want to deal with the mess. Things that are acceptable are airbags and single long sheets of paper. I use a lot of newspaper. They allow that. If you send in any sharp items whatsoever, the sharp edge must be covered and it must not be possible for it to slide out. So your best bet is if you send in anything sharp, make sure you box. Plush dolls, stuffed animals, and clothing all must be polybagged and sealed. That doesn't mean you have to heat seal it. You can have stick seals, but make sure that they're in bags. They will not accept it if they're not in bags, and then they'll charge you processing fees for handling them. Alright, very important, if you send in any glass whatsoever, it must be bubble wrapped and potentially boxed, and it must pass a 5-point drop test. I have a box here so I can show you. When they do the drop test, they drop it from a couple feet above the ground onto pure concrete, and it must not break from hitting the top side, the bottom side, the long edge, the short edge, and one corner. So they're going to drop it on all those points to check it and make sure it does not break. So you need to make sure it's absolutely wrapped to handle that drop test. Also important, if you send in glass, they suggest that you label it all fragile on the outside so people know to handle it carefully. Another thing to note to make sure you don't lose out on a ton of money on fees is when you send packages in, you can have them labeled yourself, like you label them at your facility, or you can have Amazon label them. That really depends on your preference. Amazon will charge you 20 cents per label they have to put on, and it can take up to an extra week to process your goods. But that might be worth it if you don't have a lot of free time. Make sure you choose that they're going to be labeled at the facility ahead of time so they're unloaded and processed in the right area. Also, if you label them yourself, make sure you choose that they're already labeled so they can be expedited in the unloading process. If you send anything whatsoever that's liquid, it must be completely sealed in multiple poly bags or a heat sealed bag so that no liquid, if it leaks, can ever get out of the bag. If it's not completely sealed, I believe they'll just dispose of it. So make sure it's completely sealed and surrounded by plastic, and maybe tape the seal shut. That way there's no chance of it leaking out. So that's just a basic rundown of the most important things you need to know about the stuff you're sending in. If you do not follow these guidelines, you'll be charged extra fees. They might dispose of your goods. You can get strikes against your account. Specifically the counterfeit, do not play around with that. Do not send anything you think could be counterfeit in. You will get banned, and then you won't be able to sell it all. Now I'm going to cut to my computer really fast. I want to go over the guidelines page with you a little bit more, and then I'm going to cut over to my supply area. We're going to go over all the supplies I use for shipping today. That way I can show you. Make sure if you have any questions about the supplies, you look in the description. Absolutely everything we talk about today will be down in the description with links to buy it. So make sure you look down there. I got a ton of questions on yesterday's video about the supplies I used in the video, and they were in the description. Alright, so I noted everything that's really truly important you must follow to be successful. Although if you want to look through all of the guidelines, just Google FBA Guidelines. You'll get this page or you can look through the help section of the Amazon website, and basically you can go through everything you need to know here. More importantly, some stuff I didn't highlight are the fees. It's not really my section of expertise, and you can just calculate them with the calculator ahead of time, but you can look further into the fees. You can look further into the guidelines that they want you to follow and such. So here's the page. Make sure you look through it before you ever send in a shipment. Look for extra things that I may have missed. You need to make sure you're familiar with this stuff. Read it. There's quite a bit of it, but focus on the shipping rules, the fees, and the general overview. A lot of the other stuff is filler. They do have videos available, but honestly they're pretty horrible. I'm pretty disappointed in Amazon's ability to make videos for such a big corporation. But they do give you a general guideline, but they're the most boring, ridiculous, monotonous videos you ever watch in your life. Alright, let's talk about the supplies I use for FBA real fast. Obvious things everyone should have are bubble wrap of some sort. Stretch film is very useful. You can use it in the place of poly bags for a lot of things. Tape gun I talked about earlier this week in my video. Newspaper, everyone should have this. You can use long sheets of single paper to pack, so this is great for packing boxes. If you have a laser jet printer, you need these label sheets to print labels. If you don't, then you need some kind of label printer. I use the Zebra 2824 plus. Alright, so you have the printer. Also very important are bubble mailers of some sort. You can use the post office ones as filler, or if you want to like stick things in here and then put them in the box. It's important to make sure your shipment is very protected. As far as boxes go, always use used boxes. Amazon doesn't care about the quality, they just want the stuff there safely. Now here's something important I didn't talk about earlier, is poly bags. I use 3 sizes. I have this very small size, and then I have a medium size that fits DVDs and such. Now when you send poly bags in, if this measurement is more than 6 inches wide, it's required to have a suffocation warning label. So I use rolls of labels and add them basically on anything that's polybagged with a sizable opening, just to be safe. So you should label anything that's polybagged with no label on it. I also have these giant bags which have the label printed on them. I love these. These are my favorite. I use them for probably most everything I send besides video games. So everything here is a link down below. I also use my LaserJet printer. That'll be linked down below. And then I have my Accutech scale, which I've talked about a million times. So all of this stuff I use is really important. I use every single thing here constantly. I'll link it all below. If you have any questions, make sure you leave it in the comments and I'll get back to you. Hey guys, to go along with the other stuff I mentioned today, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the categories that require approval on Amazon. There's quite a few of them, and they all have different requirements. Obviously you can find this page just by Googling the same thing, product requirements or whatever. But if you go to this page, you find this page, there's a list of all the categories that do require approval. All you need to do is click the requirements section, and then at the bottom it will have a contact us section to get started, or it will have some type of prompt system that you need to submit documents or receipts or whatever it may be, like right here, this button, request approval. So make sure you, if you want to get in different sections before you even get started, click them, see what the requirements are. They're different for all different categories. A lot of them are very easy to get into. They require maybe 3 receipts from a department store or proof that you purchased something. Some are a little bit harder, like clothing and accessories requires a giant spreadsheet to be filled out. But they all are different. Check them out. Look into the things you're interested in getting into. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I just wanted to go through the supplies I use and the restrictions you should know and be worried about so you don't get in trouble with Amazon. Obviously follow all the rules I mentioned and read through the rules on the website to see if there's anything I missed or things that might just pertain to you. Like I said, if you want to get in the ungated, in the gated categories, you need to be ungated. So go there, request approval, fill out the requirements, give them the documents, and they'll ungate you relatively quickly. Usually within 24 hours if you get everything in. Most importantly, make sure poly bags have suffocation warnings. That way you're safe. You don't have any issues with that. Everything I mentioned in this video is linked down below. Absolutely everything. So if you have any questions, look down there. Post in the comments if you have any further questions. I'll make sure I help you guys out. Thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't. Hit that like button. I'll see you guys tomorrow.